Welcome back. You're watching The Firm. Spanning 12 countries and 7 years in the making, the TPP or Trans-Pacific Partnership is the most ambitious American free trade agreement to date. While it seeks to liberalize the rules for trade and investment, critics are worried about the provisions on intellectual property and dispute settlement. Even a non-participating country like India could stand to lose. Rohit Pathak attends the Global Congress on Intellectual Property and Public Interest to find out if this Made in America free trade agreement can hurt us.
I actually think that there isn't a reason for the TPP. The reason that it's been put forward is that the United States and other countries have said that we need a 21st century, is their term, trade agreement. But in fact, what they want is a trade agreement that goes far beyond what the World Trade Organization, has allowed, and what's required of countries based on the World Trade Organization rules. There's actually no need to do the TPP unless what you want is to increase the power of multinational corporations based in the United States.
Only 5 of them are related to trade, and the other 25 chapters are focusing on rules and pushing for the governance model, which will work best in best interest of the U.S. industries.
International corporations are trying to expand their ability to actually have not just a patent, but to have a patent for longer, to be able to make small changes in drugs that don't give any actually increased benefit to patients and still get a longer patent on it. Those would be barriers to people accessing affordable generic versions.
Provisions in data exclusivity and the patent term extensions are going to make the patent term itself an uncertain period. So there will be different periods of protection in different countries in the TPP, meaning that Indian companies which are generic producers and which are major suppliers to the international market would be unable to make investment decisions. With uncertainty, it makes it difficult for companies to put in that kind of resource if the market is uncertain for a particular product. And in a situation where there is allowed evergreening, that a patent can be evergreen for new indications or for new improvements or for new uses of the known substance, and that there is also evergreening of data exclusivity protection, because if you add a new chemical entity which has not earlier been approved, and on that basis you would get another 3 years of protection, or you have a new dosage form which gives you another 3 years of protection over and above a 5-year protection, you are actually talking about a situation where protection might not end at all.
If one consequence of the TPP is to make it harder to sell generic versions of drugs, biologic drugs or other drugs, then if you're in the business of selling generic or biologic drugs, it will shrink the global market by removing the TPP members from the potential recipients. And when that happens, because of economies of scale, it'll drive up the cost of production in the non-TPP countries and maybe even make it uneconomic to introduce the products.
What is happening is that the IPR regime is going to become stiffer and will be enforced more vigorously, and is likely to create distortions in the market. And how this would happen? For instance, they have provisions for border measures that would allow for in-transit enforcements. Now, when a product is transiting through a TPP country, it is even if it is not meant for that country, it is likely to be, it can be stopped, it can be searched for IPR. So it can be, IPR violations can be evaluated before it is allowed to pass, which means that it is going to lead to situations, it might lead to, I'm not saying that it will definitely, but it might lead to situations where consignments would be stopped, there would be delays, or they may be returned. So there is definitely a lot of uncertainty that is sought to be created.
The copyright term, which previously was, according to the international standard, 50 years after the death of an author, now becomes 70 years after the death of an author.
It expands the penalties for infringement of copyright in ways that will create problems for people that are, there's some areas in copyright where, you believe you're acting lawfully, but it could be argued that you're not. For example, sharing information informally with people to discuss an issue on a listserv or something like that, or in social media. To the extent that they increase the sanctions and they tighten up the enforcement measures, it has a chilling effect on the way people use information.
ISPs, internet service providers, everyone will be affected because TPP touches everything.
This makes a lot of more complex the situation in terms of policy, because now you do not just can see the IP regulation as something to take care of, but also e-commerce chapter, also telecommunications chapter, also a lot of other issues which are already complicated, but they're connected with the internet somehow. So the internet regulations become more complicated with trade, because now it's being seen with the lens of trade.
By giving the investor the right to sue the state when they feel like their profits are threatened, there's a wide range of actions governments might take to protect consumers, protect the public in terms of the safety of products, the protection of the environment, or by expanding access to knowledge or expanding access to medicines that could be a result of a costly action under the TPP by some giant company.
Canada has been sued by a pharmaceutical company, Eli Lilly, 2 years ago, because Canada invalidated a couple of Eli Lilly's patents, and Eli Lilly was so frustrated. They tried to go to Supreme Court and challenge the Canadian rule, like as the way they did in India, and the Supreme Court said no. This is none of my business. And the patent courts were right, district court was right, appeal court was right. And then Eli Lilly was like, okay, I'll go to ISDS.
There might not be many gains from TPP as far as we are concerned, and we might have a lot to lose if we become part of it. So for one, we should continue to look within the country to improve systems and processes, improve our own competitiveness so that we don't lose out as far as trade is concerned. But on the issues of norm setting, we should definitely not be induced to modify our laws to join TPP, because that would have serious adverse actions, I think, on human health and public interest as far as India is concerned.
And that wraps it up on this week's edition of The Firm. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to all of you from all of us. Now we'll see you in the new year.
The Firm, India's only show on corporate law, tax and audit matters.